Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Hey everyone, and welcome to All Together, the Family Science Insights podcast, produced by Ellen Massell, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element, with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Dina Sargent. Let's get started.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. Aging is inevitable, but the rate at which we age and the quality of our later years are somewhat within our control. In this episode, we'll take a look at what exercise and nutrition can do for our health and vitality. To guide us through this is nutrition and healthy aging professor James McKendry, currently based in the Food, Nutrition and Health program at the University of British Columbia. James' research aims to uncover mechanisms that determine skeletal muscle mass and implement novel nutrition strategies to modify outcomes for skeletal muscle, subsequently extending the health span. So, welcome to the show, James. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to our talk today as well. But before we begin, what are some common misconceptions about aging?
There are quite a few. Often aging gets a little bit of a bad reputation, and people often assume that aging is a bad thing and it's viewed quite negatively. But this perception is shaped by various stereotypes that might not reflect accurately the full aging process. So while it does come packaged with some physical, psychological, and emotional changes, it's a natural process, but it also offers the opportunity for growth, wisdom, fulfillment, and challenging misconceptions about aging promotes a healthier and more positive experience and helps people to embrace this inevitable phase of life.
I see. And I have heard the word health span before. And what does health span mean? And what is the difference between lifespan and health span in your field?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the way I kind of like to distinguish between the different facets of aging, there's chronological aging, which is the years since you were born, just a number that kind of expresses how long you've been on the planet. There's biological aging, which is more reflective of your health condition or health status. And health span itself refers to the number of years spent in good health with good physical function without suffering from the burden of major chronic diseases.
I see. So I look forward to our talk about it. But before we continue, we'd like to get to know you better. So this is a segment called Have You Met James? Okay, so James, what is your favorite book?
There are so many. I really enjoy reading as a pastime before bed to unwind. So lots of the books I focus on reading, often as a glutton for increasing and improving my knowledge, are non-fiction, of which I've kind of narrowed it down to three, but couldn't pick a real favorite. So Burn, which is a book by Herman Ponzer, who's a well-renowned metabolism researcher, and his book focuses on the misunderstood science of metabolism.
Interesting.
There's a book called Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia, which is on the science and art of longevity. And it really focuses on implementing feasible strategies to protect against health declines as we age and continue to thrive. And kind of piecing those together is a book called Atomic Habits, which is the science behind implementing practical strategies to implement good habits, which I think those three tie really nicely together from a nutrition, healthy aging, and kind of physical activity perspective.
Indeed, especially Atomic Habits is quite a famous book, and people do read that worldwide. And what movie have you enjoyed recently?
The movie I've most enjoyed recently is actually an animated movie from Pixar called Inside
Oh,
Out.
interesting.
Are you familiar with it? Have you seen
Yeah,
it?
yeah, I love Inside Out.
Awesome.
There's,
So, if there are listeners that haven't seen it, highly recommend watching it. It's a animated movie about an 11-year-old hockey loving girl who tries to navigate the challenges of moving to a new city and growing up. But the whole movie is based on five kind of emotions that, and the whole movie happens inside her head essentially. But it's an animated, like, depiction of it, and I think it's brilliantly done. And it really made me think, I never thought about anger, sadness, fear, disgust, those kind of things in that manner. And I think it really opened my eyes. It's brilliant.
wonderful. Also, there is Inside Out 2 already out with the other emotions, where I think it's the different kinds of emotions that you have as a newly teenager growing up. And are you listening to any podcasts at the moment?
I am indeed. I've narrowed it again down to kind of three on my repertoire that are my favorites. One of which is a financial podcast. So it gives me a very brief but entertaining summary of what's going on in the financial markets. Not
Mhm.
particularly exciting, but important for other reasons. The other one is a podcast by Chris Williamson called Modern Wisdom, which is like a self improvement podcast focused on providing insights and strategies on navigating modern life. And he gets pretty cool guests on experts in their field to talk to. The final one is a much more light-hearted, wholesome podcast of two friends, kind of mostly talking nonsense. But it's very entertaining. It's a UK podcast called Chits and Gigs.
I see. And in your field, do you have any role model or just in your life in general?
I do. This was very easy to narrow down. My personal role model is my mom, without a shadow of a
Wow.
doubt. She's clever, kind, caring, tolerant, supportive, extremely resilient, and any child would be lucky to have a mom like that. But in my professional life, I have chosen my supervisors who kind of helped get me to where I am now in my career. So Dr. Lee Breen at the unit formerly, or is in the transition of leaving the University of Birmingham to move to the University of Leicester. He was my master's and PhD supervisor, and he really helped me move from undergraduate to graduate studies and embrace science and nutrition and healthy aging. And more recently, Professor Stuart Phillips of McMaster University, my postdoctoral supervisor, who's an expert in healthy aging and anything muscle, protein, nutrition. And I spent 5 wonderful years in his lab, moving just before I moved to Vancouver to take up my own professorship. So undoubtedly, I wouldn't be where I am in my career without them two. They're both so successful leaders in their field and all round just great blokes.
That's really wonderful to have multiple role models for your professional and personal life. And is there a course that has inspired you?
There is, and it happens to be my third year undergraduate course taught by my role model, Dr. Lee Breen. It was a course focused on the molecular and cellular mechanisms of how we adapt to exercise training. And this is really where I became fascinated with skeletal muscle nutrition at the cellular level, and then
Mhm.
how we can modify nutrition and exercise to either maximize muscle growth in younger or athletic populations, or perhaps use those same strategies to prevent muscle loss as we age.
I see. Now, thank you very much for your answers. Now we can get into today's topic. For starters, how would you define family?
Yeah, this is probably the one question that kind of threw me out of all of the questions that
Yeah,
have you mentioned. I think it can
indeed.
be defined in a few ways. Of course, there's a biological
Mhm.
family, a legal family, but to me, a really nice definition would be a group of people who care and support for one another and also provide kind of a sense of identity and belonging. And I know some family relationships can look quite different, can be quite complicated, but
Mhm.
ultimately, the family unit is usually comprised of people you value, you trust, and you prioritize above a lot of other things. So that's probably how I'd summarize it quite succinctly.
And how would you define aging and health span?
That's a great question. They are definitely distinct um, phenomenon. Chronological aging, as I mentioned at the start, was describes the years that you've been on the planet or the number of years that have passed since birth, whereas biological aging refers more to your health condition or health status. But health span is really the important concept where it typically refers to the number of years you spend unburdened by chronic diseases or mobility limitations, you remain fully functional. It more describes the quality of your life as opposed to the quantity of the life that you've lived.
I see. And in what ways does healthy aging contribute to the family that we mentioned just now in the beginning?
Oh, in a whole host of ways, healthy aging can really enrich family life by a number of mechanisms. It provides can provide intergenerational support. It can help to reduce stress and promote a culture of well-being, which benefits not only the person who's aging but the people who are around them.
Mm.
To give you some more specific examples, someone who is aging healthfully, unburdened by kind of disease and mobility limitations, may have reduced financial concerns from medical expenses or long term care facilities. It can
Oh,
reduce the family caregiver burden as well. Healthy
mm,
aging role models can also
I see.
serve as a someone to look up to in the family who models good habits, is still physically active, eats well, and can really guide younger family members in how best to navigate those later years. And I think another important one that's often kind of forgotten is if you are more healthy as you're progressing through your later years, it gives you the opportunity to remain engaged with your family, friends, and even the community surrounding you. So, by volunteering or even caregiving for grandchildren and those kinds of things.
Mm, I see. So there's actually a lot of factors that contribute, as well as a lot of benefits in healthy aging, not just financially or physically to yourself, but also to the members of your family, especially younger ones, as role models. And what key factors contribute to healthy aging?
It's certainly a multifaceted process that requires concerted effort on many fronts. So, the big pillars that I would say that contribute most to aging healthfully would be regular exercise or physical activity, a healthy dietary pattern,
Hmm.
sufficient nutrients, and good hydration come under that umbrella. Good social connectivity. So surround yourself with people you love, people you like spending time with, good friends and family.
Hmm.
One that tends to go awry as people progress through their later years is sleep. So,
Mm,
good sleep and stress management protocols or practices can really help to contribute to aging healthfully. And then the big one, of course, is avoiding harmful habits. So, unfortunately, my entire family is a family of smokers. So
Mm,
I am the only one who bucked that trend, and I feel like if I did that, I shouldn't be a professor of nutrition and healthy aging. So uh, that's the one I did kick. But those are probably the big pillars: exercise, diet, social connectivity, sleep, stress management, and avoiding those bad habits that really contribute to deteriorating your health.
I see. You mentioned smoking. What about vaping and its effects on health span?
That's a really good question, and not one I'm particularly well versed in the research for that area. However, I'm pretty confident in saying that vaping is more or less damaging for you than smoking, but I'd still err on the side of caution and say it's definitely not good for you.
I see. Because some people start vaping at a very young age, indeed. And what are the essential nutrients for optimal health as we age?
The big one, because I like to think of muscle as the most important kind of facet of aging healthfully, is or at least one of them. So protein is the nutrient that contributes to maintaining your muscle, your bone, your immune function as you age. So we know as well that nutrient requirements change as we
Mhm.
age, and protein is one of those nutrients that we require much more of as we get older because we're less able to utilize it for the cellular mechanisms and roles that it plays in the body. We become less efficient at using it. So we need to eat a little bit more of it to compensate for that.
I see.
There are,
Mhm.
oh, sorry.
Continue on. Sorry, I thought you were
Yes,
finished.
there are a couple of others that I'd like to draw your attention to. Fiber is one particular that's kind of come
Ah,
under increasing focus. It's really important for maintaining good digestive or gastrointestinal health
mhm.
and reduces the risk for colon cancer, and coupled with sufficient hydration or water intake, they really help to promote a healthy digestive system. And there are also some micronutrients, mineral vitamins and minerals such as vitamin D and calcium that can help with bone health as we age. And of the fatty side of things, there's omega-3 fatty acids from oily fish like salmon and things that help with heart health and cognitive function as we age. So there are a few that definitely require a little bit more attention as we get older.
Mhm. And you mentioned about protein and muscle, but is there like a particular set of muscle that we need to uh, prioritize on or look after as we age, especially?
Yeah, that's a really good and important question. So I think a really nice way I like to think about this is as soon as you let your leg muscles dwindle so far that you're unable to help your leg and arm muscles, that you're unable to help yourself get out of a chair, get off the toilet, rise from a bath, climb the stairs, you lose the ability to maintain your physical independence. So you can no longer look after yourself effectively without help. So keeping those limb muscles strong and powerful for as long as possible is a really good focus for your exercise and healthy aging plans.
I see. So focusing on our limbs, especially for our health span in the future. And many people turn to plenty of nutrient supplements to for an answer to their longevity. What are the potential advantages and disadvantages for nutrient supplements?
You are absolutely right. So many people opt for nutritional supplements as the first port of call when they're looking to make a dietary change. The best way I like to think about this is in line with a really cool paper by some sports nutritionists in the
Mm-hmm.
International Journal of Sports Nutrition and Exercise Metabolism, which kind of promotes the idea of food first, but not always food only. So That kind of means that most nutrients can be, or nutrient requirements can be met with a
Mm.
good, varied, healthy diet. And this is even true for older adults who might require a bit more of some of those nutrients we just mentioned. But in some situations, there may be challenges in getting in those additional nutrients.
Yeah.
And in that case, supplements may be an easy, convenient way to kind of fill some of the nutritional gaps in their diet and maybe in some cases provide additional health benefits, such as the omega 3 fatty acids for heart health, or as you might have seen in the news or social media, creatine for muscle health as we age as well is a really popular one at the moment.
I see. You mentioned omega 3 and creatine for extra supplements, but what are, uh, when we eat healthy food, there's a lot of nutrients and fiber that goes inside, but are there any vitamins or supplements that we need to look out for to add to our body? Because maybe in the foods that we eat, it's not necessarily there. What types of vitamins should we look into?
I think you can, with the diligent planning, you can get all of the essential vitamins, minerals, nutrients from a food only kind of diet. But if that's not the case, some of the supplements, particularly maybe in countries that don't get as much sunlight, maybe,
Mm.
or really have really drawn out winters, vitamin D supplementation could be useful. I would encourage people to only supplement if they think that they're going to be deficient in it. There doesn't seem to be any benefit from taking more and more and more. It's just if you fill the gap that was missing, you're correcting a deficiency as opposed to kind of making things much better.
I see. So, you said that there are people who add on to supplements, and some people actually take dozens of supplements. Are there any health issues to taking too many supplements?
There are a lot of considerations before you start guzzling handfuls of pills in the morning, afternoon, and night. So,
Yeah.
overconsumption or even over reliance on supplements to make up for a poor diet is something that should be considered. Remember, it's the dose that makes the poison, and too much of a good thing can be have negative consequences,
I see.
particularly here in North America.
Mm.
Supplements are very poorly regulated.
Ah.
So, in some cases, supplements don't contain the ingredient that they said they had, or they contain a different ingredient, or they contain something that really shouldn't be in there. And that contamination might be with something that's really not good for your health.
Mhm.
It might interact poorly with medication that you're already taking. So I
Oh,
think
that's right.
without third party testing is the only way to kind of overcome that. So choosing a supplement that has been independently tested by a third party research laboratory may provide a useful kind of quality control track in the supplement that you're consuming.
Mm-hmm.
Another really concerning thing is some of these supplements are eye-wateringly expensive. They are marketed really attractively to people, and then you realize, oh, my 1 month supply is going to cost me 50, $100 or whatever it is, and it can be pretty costly.
I see. That's a very wonderful insight, especially a lot of people look out for shortcuts, right? And try not to eat well. And that's actually an interesting take, especially um, when considering when we are about to commit to dietary supplements. Those are actually things that we need to look out for our due diligence, especially in the actual ingredients that go inside what we are taking into our body. And dietary patterns like the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, which is the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, have made waves in the health industry. Are there any in particular that promote healthy aging, or is it just depending on how we eat in general?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There are absolutely several dietary patterns. The one that you touched upon, the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, which is the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, a kind of modified DASH diet, which is the Mediterranean DASH intervention for neurodegenerative
Mm.
delay. But it isn't really the specific diet that, or the dietary name that's important. Really, these dietary patterns kind of have common principles such that they emphasize whole foods,
Mhm.
plant-based products such as nuts, seeds, legumes, healthy fats such as nuts, fish, kind of olive oil, and much leaner cuts of meat. But they
Mhm.
also emphasize can reducing the consumption of highly or ultra processed foods, or which often contain greater amounts of kind of saturated fat, added sugars, and high levels of sodium as well, which can contribute negatively to our health.
I see. And we've talked in length about nutrition and how the patterns of our nutrition intake can affect our healthy aging. Now, what about exercise? What's the importance of exercise for extending our health span?
There are so many benefits from performing or engaging in regular exercise and physical activity. Kind of, I'd like to group them into physical, mental, cognitive, and kind of social emotional as well. So
Hmm.
the physical, the obvious ones, the ones that you can see and kind of really experience from an athletic perspective, increase muscular strength, improve aerobic fitness, and both of those physical facets are contributors to reducing the risk of long-term chronic diseases.
Hmm.
They maintain older adults' physical function so that it's such that they can maintain their physical independence
Yeah,
and hopefully contribute to their quality of life. But the benefits of exercise don't stop with the physical. There are the mental cognitive benefits, such as promoting brain health and mood improvements. I know I'm particularly cranky for the most of the day if I haven't exercised in the morning,
I see.
and it goes a long way to reducing my stress levels as well. There's few better feelings than putting in some hard work and then reaping the benefits of that in a kind of physical or mental mood boosting way. And the final kind of social emotional benefit of engaging in regular physical activity, it gives you the opportunity to interact with other people and engage with others. I train in the mornings pretty early, but with my partner. So we exercise together at the gym. It's a 20-minute walk, so we can walk and kind of communicate and talk to one another. We then exercise and put in some hard work, and then we feel much better, even though it's early and everyone's still half asleep. It's a really
Mhm.
nice way to kind of deepen that connection. And for older adults as well, particularly, it can give them a sense of kind of achievement as well. So once they've finished maybe working, then they might have a space in their day that they want to fill, and doing something physical that's difficult, that has so many benefits, can give you a good sense of achievement and contribute to that quality of life.
I see. As we talk about older adults, are there specific exercises or how can beginner older adults start with exercising to expand their health span?
Yeah, that's a really important question. Getting started is often the most difficult thing. So I think there are some really good resources, particularly in Canada. We have the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiology, and they have 24-hour movement guidelines, which kind of
Hmm.
highlight what types of exercise and how frequently you might need to engage in them to reap the health benefits of said exercise. So To break it down into the individual facets, they have suggest, along with most people, 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity
Mm.
or 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity per week. The good news, that can come in a whole host of different methods. So choosing something that you enjoy is going to help you stick to that. That could be cycling or swimming or running or brisk walking or climbing, but something that gets your heart rate up and your breathing rate up such that it feels a little bit difficult or challenging to hold a conversation.
Yeah. You
The
mentioned that.
next,
Mhm.
oh, oh no, go
Continuing?
ahead.
No, I thought you were finished. The next?
Yes, sorry. The next really important thing that is often overlooked with exercise training, for particularly for older adults, is strength, incorporating sufficient strength training. So
Mm.
the Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology recommends strength engaging in strength training at least twice per week.
Mm.
That can be weightlifting, typical machine based exercises, or free weights that you might find in a gym. But it could also be home based body weight exercises, or resistance
Oh,
bands have taken off in terms of their popularity recently.
indeed.
And similar to the aerobic exercise, you should do it such that it feels a little bit difficult, or you could only do a few more repetitions. So it should feel challenging. It's not meant to be easy. And I think that can be one of the off putting bits of exercise for older adults. But engaging in those difficult to do exercises can really reap significant health benefits. And the final piece, the flexibility and balance. We know
Mm.
older adults are at a greater risk of falls and fractures if their bone density decreases, and those can begin a really negative cascade of events such
Mm.
that you injure yourself, you lose a bit of muscle, you never quite recover to back where you started. Then you spend a bit more time sedentary, and it kind of goes down much more precipitously. You lose
Mm.
muscle much faster. So maintaining your ability to balance through yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, those can be really important ways of kind of intervening and preventing older adults from suffering from a fall and fracturing something.
I see. So, in short, it's cardio, strength training, and flexibility and balance.
Exactly that. I think that's a recipe. If you can incorporate that effectively into your weekly exercise program and find the time to incorporate that, then you'll be well on your way to living a long, healthy, happy life.
What extent of exercise would be considered healthy when it comes to aging bodies? So, to what extent does these exercises count as healthy for them?
Yeah, that's a really, really important question. So I think the really cool thing to stress is most of the health benefits come from doing the transition from doing nothing to doing something. That's where you reap lots of the benefits in the change. And then as you gradually increase either the amount that you do it, the kind of frequency that you engage, there are
Mhm.
there is a dose response. So the more you do, the better the outcomes, but to a point. And there's diminishing returns with that. So I'm not suggesting that every older adult should be running marathons and attempting strongman competitions.
Mhm.
There are definitely diminishing returns, but engaging frequently and going from being a rather sedentary individual to maybe meeting the exercise guidelines, that would be a significant step towards healthfulness with age.
You mentioned something about social and community, especially in healthy aging. Can you explain to me how that also aids into the exercise and working out, especially for older adults who is just starting out and looking for a community that helps them engage in a happier and healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the really important concepts of aging and exercising, perhaps as a community, like me and my partner exercising in the gym, it holds, gives you a little bit of an accountability partner. So it helps you show up frequently. And by doing so, you get positive feedback and that makes you feel good. When you feel good, you're more likely to engage in that exercise again. So it's kind of a it's a bit of a cyclical process in that if you engage in it, and that change is particularly difficult, going from doing nothing to doing something, finding an exercise you like. But once you've got that, you've got a community, you've got people around you to support you, cheer you on, and notice when you're improving in strength, in fitness, when things get easier. And that positive reinforcement is so important for making a infrequent occurrence into a lifelong habit.
I see. So it's more to the importance of how we can make it into a habit, because a lot of the times, right, people are scared to start, especially when they get older and they're afraid to go to the gym and exercise, especially surrounded by younger people around. So having a community would actually reinforce them to go again and actually enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It can remove some of those barriers to getting into exercise and then staying in and continuing to engage in it.
And as we age, our bodies may take more time to recover from exercises our muscles. What is the importance of adapting with the times and reevaluating our exercises as we age and understanding our muscles?
You are absolutely right. As we age, unfortunately, our muscles do begin to shrink. Our recovery can take a little bit longer. And that means maybe our training sessions get more spaced out or become less frequent, which can slow the progress that you see with your exercise routine. So adapting your expectations and reevaluating the exercises is crucial for maintaining your health, but avoiding injuries and overuse injuries, because that could lead to a longer period where you're unable to engage in exercise. But it also means that the exercise remains enjoyable. So you're more likely to engage in that exercise again. So if that means for you taking an extra day between exercise training sessions to reduce some of the pain that you might be experiencing, maybe you have sore muscles for an extra day or so, that's not a problem. And exercise is a very modifiable practice. There are a whole
Mm,
host of ways to change it to adapt to, say, you have a sore knee from running you were doing, then there might be ways around, ways you can manipulate or change the exercises you engage in to continue to progress, but that don't
mhm.
interfere with the recovery in certain body parts.
We have talked about plenty today. We've talked about the nutrition and exercise aspect of aging and health span. So let's talk about practices and habits that we can do to take away from this conversation. So, what habits would you recommend practicing when it comes to healthy aging?
I think there are four kind of categories again that I've grouped these habits to healthy aging. The physical one, which is engage in regular physical activity and a healthful dietary approach. But most importantly, it needs to be something you can stick to and that you enjoy. Otherwise, that's not going to be a habit that lasts very long. For your mental health as you
Mhm,
age, I think building good sleep practices is
mhm,
really important. So, going to bed maybe at the same time, waking up at the same time, building that routine makes it much easier to stick to those habits. And surrounding yourself from a social perspective with your connections, your friends and family. Now, if
Mhm.
you do that frequently, that is more likely going to lead to a positive outlook, and you're going to enjoy the things that you engage in much more as well. So,
Mhm.
from a physical, mental, social, and then the last thing is the personal thing, which is essentially, I don't know if it's a habit, but try and stay positive. Enjoy the ride, try new things, continue to try new hobbies, life, and become a lifelong learner.
What are the good things about these practices that you have mentioned?
I think overall they contribute to maintaining your muscle, maintaining your mental health, and ensuring that you enjoy the aging experience
Mhm.
as opposed to resenting the fact that you are inevitably getting older.
Mm, I see. So it makes the things that we do, that we start doing, much more enjoyable. For you personally, do you do any of these practices? And if you do, are there any challenges when you do these?
Absolutely. There are certainly days when, so I engage in resistance training most days and sometimes cardiovascular exercise. So if I were to compare myself to the physical activity guidelines, I've probably got it the wrong way around. I strength train with the frequency that I should aerobically train, and I aerobically train with the frequency that I strength train. So I could definitely make some improvements. But that being said, sometimes there are days when my alarm goes off and I really don't want to engage in that exercise in the morning. And there are times when that's okay. Be kind to yourself. If you really don't feel like it, that's okay. Other times you might need a little bit extra discipline. And that's where I mentioned my partner and I exercise training together. We have that accountability partner that keeps us showing up.
I see. And you mentioned about aerobic exercises and strength training and flexibility. Is there like a recommended amount of certain exercises in a week?
Yeah. So the exercise guidelines from the Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology say they 150 minutes of the moderate to vigorous, but it's really up to you how you slice that up throughout the week. There is some emerging
Mm,
evidence that busy work professionals often like to engage in what they're called in weekend warrior practices. So they
mm,
don't do a lot throughout the week, but
that's
they'll
right.
go out and do a really long run or cycle or something on a Saturday or a Sunday. And that might not be suitable for everybody's schedule, but it still reaps physical and mental benefits. And you can still yield a lot of the good things that come from engaging in that exercise practice. So there is a lot of flexibility with these approaches. You can kind of
Hmm.
chop and change them to suit your schedule, but those are what I would consider the kind of minimum amount to yield the maximum benefit.
I see. So essentially, according to the guideline you mentioned, it's 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercises, and it can be basically about anything, and it's better than nothing at the very
Absolutely.
least. Yeah, it's better to just get started first and then readjust on. I think there needs to be strength training. I think my body's a bit stiff. So flexibility training is probably needed. So understanding yourself and having that self-awareness is what's important here.
Yeah, it's really good to keep an adaptable approach. If there are days you're hurting a bit more from the exercise soreness, maybe go for a light cycle or a brisk walk or something that day and really help yourself recover, particularly as you're aging and those exercise training sessions can hurt a little bit more or linger a little bit longer, then that
Mhm.
can be a really useful way to keep you engaged.
I see. Thank you very much, James, for our talk today. And now we are going into the segment that we call open mic, where you have the chance to talk about anything that you're particularly passionate about. So the floor is yours.
Well, it's a really nice opportunity to be given the chance to kind of freely speak about healthy aging, but I think the topic I'd most like to encourage to discuss is right on brand with the rest of this podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the importance of strength training for older adults. For years, the spotlight has been shone on aerobic exercise to promote
Yeah.
health and improve health span, whereas now I would argue that strength training is as, or if not more important than aerobic exercise training to protect against the loss of skeletal muscle as we age
Mm-hmm.
and maintain physical independence such that we can be there for our families and look after ourselves and show up for as long as physically possible.
I see. That's wonderful. That's a wonderful open mic topic that you mentioned there, because a lot of the times you're right. People used to focus very much on aerobic, and nowadays strength training is becoming more of the it thing, the it exercise, so that people maintain their muscle as they grow older. And thank you very much for joining us today. And if our listeners want to find out more about you, James, and what you do, where can they go?
You're more than welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. If people have enjoyed the podcast and would like to get in contact, you can find my university profile at the University of British Columbia in the Faculty of Land and Food Systems, James
Mhm.
McKendry. My email address associated with UBC is james.mckendry, that's MCKENDRY, at ubc.ca. On social media, my Instagram or Twitter, now X, is James_McKendry, and LinkedIn for those that might be interested in a more like a professional connection, then James McKendry, Ph.D. is my profile.
Thank you very much for coming today, James. And we will put those in the links below. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will see you next time. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Altogether, the Family Science Insights podcast, produced by the Family Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting apps available on your devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people find it so that we can grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at fa.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Dina Sargent. Thanks for tuning in.